The UN Charter guarantees equal treatment to all nations. Yet the Human Rights Council passes more resolutions against Israel than all other countries combined. Terrorism by Hamas and Hezbollah is ignored by the UN. UN Watch restores the ideals of the Council's founders. Founding Chair Eleanor Roosevelt stood with Israel and its right to self-defense. Rene Cassatt, architect of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, defended Israel's right to equality. When the UN began to persecute the Jewish state, the founders spoke out. When Hamas kidnapped 3 Israeli boys and the UN was silent, UN Watch gave their mothers a platform to appeal to the world.
On behalf of UN Watch, my name is Rachel Frankel and I live in Israel. I've come here today as a mother. 12 days ago, my son Naftali and 2 other teenage students, Eyal Ifrach and Gilad Shaer, whose mothers are sitting behind me, were kidnapped on their way home from school. Since then, we've heard nothing. No news, no sign of life. My son texted me, said he's on his way home, and then he's gone. Every mother's nightmare is waiting and waiting endlessly for her child to come home. Mr. President, it is wrong to take children, innocent boys and girls, and use them as instruments of any struggle. It is cruel. This council is charged with protecting human rights. I wish to ask, doesn't every child have the right to come home safely from school?
When Hamas attacked Israeli cities with thousands of rockets, the UN called an emergency session to condemn Israel.
The massacres and a genocide being carried out
to exterminate the Palestinian people.
A racist and criminal mentality.
And we ask all those who embrace hypocrisy and double standards, if in the past year you did not cry out when thousands of protesters were killed and injured by Turkey, Egypt and Libya, when more victims than ever were hanged by Iran, women and children in Afghanistan were bombed, whole communities were massacred in South Sudan, hundreds in Pakistan were killed by jihadist terrorist attacks, 10,000 Iraqis were killed by terrorists.
There's a point of order.
So I don't see that we have a reason to come and discuss other issues relating to human rights situations in other different countries.
Finally, we ask if those who refuse to speak out for Palestinians, 1,800 Palestinians, if not more, who were starved to death and murdered by Assad in Syria, but you only cry out when Israel can be blamed, then you are not pro-human rights, you are only anti-Israel.
Syria, you have the floor, please.
I hope the speaker will no longer be allowed to continue his statement. Thank you.
Let the world note that at a session purportedly on Palestinian human rights, the government of Syria objected for us to mention the 1,800 Palestinians that they starved and murdered.
UN Watch is the voice of truth in the media.
As far as Human Rights Watch is concerned, could war crimes have been committed by either side in this current conflict?
Yes, they could. Many of them, there was no military object at all in that area, and a very large strike was launched, killing numerous civilians in each one of those cases.
Look, all deaths are tragic, but there's no way that Bill from Human Rights Watch can know if there's a military object when Hamas has their entire infrastructure built under kilometers of tunnels, built under hospitals and schools and private homes. So unless Hamas is giving Bill of Human Rights Watch privileged access to their terror tunnels, I think the conclusions that he's making from afar seem to me baseless.
Well, it's not actually that difficult in some cases to figure out what's going on, and we are on the ground.
The terror tunnels are below ground.
And as you know, and as I mean, you can say terror tunnels, but it's a bit of a slogan. It's a bit of a slogan to just because
it's not
in
a
the
slogan.
case
There are
of
kilometers
the attack
and kilometers
on the
of
beach,
cement that your organization demanded be imported in there. They used the cement not to build hospitals, schools. You've seen the videos, unless you're being intentionally blind. The videos have been published.
Mr. Neuer, I would like to respond, please.
Of tunnels that were built from Gaza to Israel.
Diana, is Hamas or are any of the other Palestinian militant factions guilty of war crimes? Are they using civilians as human shields or schools to store missiles?
Absolutely not. And this type of questioning is absolutely repulsive and repugnant. The very thought that Palestinians should be blamed for the fact that Israel is bombing them is beyond repulsive.
So she's saying that there's no rockets in schools. UNRWA, the group that's dedicated to helping Palestinians, has said for the second time they found rockets in schools.
Okay.
If Diana's a human rights lawyer, why can't she condemn an organization that is anti-women, anti-gay, anti-human rights, and is clearly putting rockets in schools and hospitals?
Okay, Diana,
why can't she condemn them? Why can't she say what her own ambassador is saying?
Diana, please.
The rockets that were found in the schools in UNRWA were schools that are not being used by anybody. School is out, if I'll have you know. And if you want me to renounce Hamas because they're anti-woman, anti-everything, then I'm also going to sit and renounce Israel, which is also anti-Roman, anti-free speech, anti-gay, anti-everything. The fact that we have to sit here and engage in this debate rather than discussing
Diana, Israel's
war
anti-gay?
crimes that
Diana Boutou said that Israel is anti-women and anti-gay like Hamas is. Can't think of anything more preposterous than that. Israel has an annual gay parade in Tel Aviv and has enormous equality, more equality for gays than anywhere in the entire Middle East, and she knows that. She also knows that Israel had a woman as chief justice and women who had major political parties and were prime ministers. And Hamas, the idea that a woman had any public position is preposterous. So she's saying things that are just absolutely absurd.
In the middle of the war between Hamas and Israel, the Human Rights Council created a one-sided commission of inquiry. The resolution condemned Israel 18 times and failed to mention Hamas even once. When the council appointed William Schabas to head the investigation, UN Watch exposed his extreme bias.
Frankly, if I had to think of an individual who would be the greatest threat to the survival of Israel, I'd probably choose Netanyahu.
Actually, my favorite would be Netanyahu in the dock at the International Criminal Court.
Got UN Watch Executive Director Hillel Neuer here to talk about this guy. His name is William Schabas. Hillel, how can a guy like this get appointed to an inquiry that's supposed to be impartial?
UN Watch filed a legal brief demanding that Schabas be fired. UN Watch continued a relentless campaign demanding that Schabas be fired. Leading voices joined UN Watch, and the pressure mounted.
And so what I've done is resigned, and he won't have me to kick around anymore.
UN Watch, fighting to defend the true principles of human rights.